Any speakers?
Mr. Chair.
To our level.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kia ora tātou katoa. Being first time having a bill in Parliament and under my name as a private member is pretty special. Must be so special that I didn't realise I had to stay in the chair all of the time, so I apologise to you, Mr. Chair, for that. But it's a real privilege to be able to have an actual bill on the table of the House of Parliament under my name, and in particular under the Māori Party. Can I, and if I need and if I stray a little bit, hopefully you'll be able to give me a hand, Mr. Speaker. I don't think I want to traverse too many of the negative effects of gambling that were well traversed in the first and second reading, so I'll leave those there. But look to say that this bill, I believe, aside from the fact that some have suggested that it might well have been cut well back, for my part, Mr. Chair, the great thing about this particular bill from its very inception was the discussion. It brought to the table all of the very many parties that have an interest, all across the board, whether they be people who ask for money or whether they be controlling the money or distributing the money. The great thing is that it's allowed the debate to happen, and I want to thank the Select Committee that listened to all of those many submissions. I want to also thank the Minister who, while we talk through this bill, worked with me to look not only at this particular, at my bill, but also the longer vision. So I pay tribute to Chris Tremaine, the Honourable Chris Tremaine and his officers for working with us to look at not just this bill, because it doesn't have to be seen just in this bill alone, but in subsequent bills that may well come through from the National Party and indeed from the Minister in the course of time, hopefully before the end of the year. So the original bill, when we set that out, there was a couple of points that I wanted to make with respect to the original bill, and say that, for starters, that we wanted to cut out racing and racing stake money as an authorised charitable purpose. Our reason for that was because we shouldn't give special consideration to this industry when community organisations are so short of funding, and aside from that, it seems such a contradiction that you get money, put money into a machine that coughs up some benefits supposedly go to the community, and yet it ends up going as prize money to racing. It just seems such a huge contradiction, which is why we put it in the first instance. So the second part, apart from that, the government generally disagreed with that, saying that it would have too much of a negative impact on the racing industry, and others will probably support that view. So the second part was that the original bill had a condition that at least 80% of the funds derived from Class 4 gambling would be distributed to the community from which it came. It would be implemented by a condition on the mandatory licence that societies have to apply for to operate gaming machines. Again, the government said that that wouldn't work because societies can challenge the conditions of their licence. But the government did say that they supported the idea of making sure funds from pokies went back to the communities of origin, and that was at the very heart of our particular bill. So we believe, sir, that the bill in its current form does in fact allow that to happen, although through regulation. The third part of the bill was required territorial authorities to take control of distributing proceeds from gaming. No longer any need for societies, and I believe in the committee stages, in the select committee process that we heard across the board from a number of exercises in the past where societies have been caught under having rorted the system in one form or another. The government didn't necessarily agree, and the vast majority of the submitters didn't necessarily agree that local authorities take up that reign, but the government did say that there is a need for greater transparency of the current grant system, taking away the risk of rorts and dodgy dealings, and we believe that that's going to be, if it's not, we believe it's partly covered in my bill, but also will be followed up in the further legislation down the line. If I can just talk to the fourth part of the bill, it allowed for public sentiment and evidence of harm to be a specific criteria when territorial authorities are developing their venue policies, and for that to be a reason for reducing the number of pokie machines in that area. And I believe Mr Mallard, some of his amendments sort of cover that. The government didn't agree with this, saying that this would impact unfairly on existing venues. But they wanted to instead allow venues with permission from territorial authorities to move their poker machines, Mr Chair, machines out of harm's way, perhaps to CBDs, but not to low decile areas, and I believe that that has been dealt with in the bill. The final part, Mr Chair, is that the original bill wanted harm minimisation devices to be put into the gambling in all gambling machines like pre-commit cards and player tracking. I was lucky enough to be invited to go and have a look, and I believe it was in Hamilton, at some of these machines, facial recognition machines, see how they worked. And to me, as a sort of somebody coming into that and having a look at it, on the face of it, they actually worked. But I've since been told that there's all sorts of difficulties with technology that may well put that in question. And of course, I heard also from evidence from overseas, in Australia in particular, that things like pre-commit cards and player tracking have not yet necessarily been tested in full to be assured that there is no hiccups in how those devices are used. So the government did, however, didn't agree because of the whole changing of technology over time, and simply because there wasn't enough information. But the Minister, in working with me, did, however, support the development of regulations to support the implementation of harm minimisation technology, which I believe is very much at the heart of the bill. So in today's, as we go through the committee stages today, Mr Chair, I'm happy that there are a large number of amendments to the bill, and the Māori Party took consideration of those, and many of them we will be supporting, many of them we will not be, but I'm pleased that across the House, from the Greens, from the Labour, that we've been able to have a number of amendments that will contribute to the discussion, if not to the end outcome, but nevertheless to the discussion. I think that's important that we put that on the record. So with that, thank members for their contributions tonight. Look forward to the debate. Kia ora tātou.
I call Denise Roach.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair.